Consider the word no. It is one of the shortest and simplest words in our language, yet for so many of us, it is the heaviest and most difficult to utter. Think about the last time you wanted to say it, but didn't. The request from a friend you didn't have the energy for. The extra project at work that pushed you towards burnout. The family obligation that went against your own needs. What was the feeling that stopped you? For most of us, it is a powerful, immediate, and deeply uncomfortable wave of guilt. We feel as if we are being selfish, difficult, or cruel. We feel in that moment like a villain. Welcome to Existential Psychology Insights. I know this feeling of guilt is a heavy burden for many, and if it's something you struggle with, you are in the right place. We are going to explore this not as a personal failing, but as a profound psychological and philosophical issue. I invite you to subscribe so we can continue these crucial conversations together. Today, we are going on a deep dive into the lost art of setting healthy boundaries. We will dismantle the guilt that surrounds the word no and reframe the act of setting boundaries not as an act of aggression, but as a fundamental and necessary act of self-respect and the very foundation of an authentic life. To understand the guilt, we must first understand its deep psychological roots. This is not a simple lack of assertiveness. It is often tied to our most primal survival instincts. As social creatures, our survival has historically depended on our acceptance within the tribe. Rejection meant isolation, and isolation often meant death. On an unconscious level, a part of our brain still equates another person's disapproval with an existential threat. When we say no, we risk disappointing someone. We risk conflict. We risk rejection. And so our ancient survival alarm goes off, flooding our system with the powerful emotions of anxiety and guilt, designed to pressure us back into a state of compliance and social harmony. The people pleaser, as we've discussed before, is someone for whom this alarm is incredibly sensitive. This is where the first crucial philosophical reframe comes in. We've been conditioned to see boundaries as walls. We think of them as aggressive, hostile structures we build to push people away and to isolate ourselves. And because of this metaphor, we feel guilty for building them. But this is a fundamentally flawed way of seeing it. A much more powerful and accurate metaphor is to think of your boundaries not as a wall, but as the gate to your own sacred inner sanctuary. Imagine your time, your energy, your emotional well-being, and your mental peace as a beautiful, serene garden that you are responsible for cultivating. If you leave the gate wide open, anyone and everyone can wander in. They can trample your flowers, exhaust your resources, and fill your peaceful space with their own chaos and demands. Soon, your garden will be a barren, stressful wasteland. A boundary is not a wall to lock yourself in. It is the gate that you, as the sovereign and responsible caretaker of your own life, have the right to consciously open and close. You have the right to decide who and what you allow into your sacred space. Setting a boundary is not about punishing or rejecting the person on the outside. It is about honoring and protecting the life that is on the inside. When you reframe it this way, the guilt begins to lose its power. You are not being a villain, you are being a wise and responsible guardian of your own soul. The cost of living a boundaryless life is immense, and it often accumulates so slowly that we don't notice it until we are in a state of profound burnout or deep resentment. When you say yes to everything, you are by default saying no to the things that truly matter. You say yes to another late night at work, and you say no to your own rest and health. You say yes to a social event you don't want to attend, and you say no to the quiet, restorative solitude you desperately need. You say yes to listening to someone's endless complaints, and you say no to your own mental peace. This leads us to the next profound philosophical principle, the concept of the sacred yes. A life filled with 1,000 reluctant, resentful, and obligatory yeses is a life of profound inauthenticity. Your yes loses all its power and meaning. It becomes cheap. But when you learn to say a clear, calm, and guilt-free no to the things that do not align with your values, your health, or your purpose, you create the necessary space for a powerful and sacred yes. The yes you give to your creative work, to your loved ones, to your own well-being, becomes a conscious, wholehearted, and meaningful commitment. A well-placed no is what gives your yes its integrity. So, how do we do this in practice? How do we move from theory to action? First, you must give yourself permission. You must consciously acknowledge that your needs are valid, that your time is finite and precious, and that you have a fundamental right to protect your own well-being. This is the internal work that must happen before any external action can be effective. Second, start small. You do not need to start by saying no to your boss or a demanding family member. Start with low-stakes situations. Say no thank you to the salesperson. Politely decline a social invitation you're not excited about. The goal is to build your boundary muscle and to teach your nervous system through repeated experience that the world doesn't end when you honor your own limits. Third, learn to communicate your boundaries calmly, clearly, and compassionately. A boundary is not an angry ultimatum. It can be as simple as, "I appreciate you thinking of me, but I don't have the capacity for that right now." Or, "I can't help you with that, but I wish you the best of luck." You do not need to over-explain, apologize profusely, or justify your no. A simple, respectful statement is sufficient. You are responsible for setting your boundary. You are not responsible for the other person's emotional reaction to it. And you must prepare to manage the guilt. When you first start, the guilt will come. It is a conditioned response. When it arrives, do not see it as a sign that you have done something wrong. Acknowledge it. Tell yourself, this is just the old programming. This feeling is a sign that I am choosing myself, and that is a courageous act. With practice, as you see that the world doesn't fall apart and your self-respect grows, the voice of guilt will become quieter and quieter.